Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my video. Today, I would like to storytell to you guys about the story I've recently made regarding and correlated with social culture of Indonesia and Korea. Let's start. So once upon a time, lived an infamous graphic designer, and her name is Kartika Dewi Sari. She is always known as Dewi. And she's also known for her authentic Indonesian designs that she used to celebrate her country's rich culture and to embrace her country's rich culture. She is also ambitious and passionate. She always puts her heart and soul into creating unique and culturally inspired motifs that captivated majority of her clients and even audiences. Her work often radiated a compassionate and glamorous vibe, making her designs highly admired. And over the time, Dewi's recognition grew, attracting other clients not just from Indonesia but also people from around the world. The newfound fame brought joy and anxiety to Dewi, but she couldn't handle the joy well with the anxiety because she's introverted. Though she was grateful for the attention, the constant influx of fans and critics became overwhelming for her. So time skipped to March 2024, where she had grown accustomed to the constant attention she received, including the frequent interview requests and messages from fans that is eager to know her personally and know her designs. However, when she received a message on Instagram one day from a famous Korean actor, his name is Shin Yun-woo, she was stunned. He expressed admiration for her work and invited her to collaborate on a special design for a significant event. Though Dewi thought initially overwhelmed by the request, agreed to meet him and began to prepare for their first face-to-face discussion. The anxiety of meeting someone with his speech status weighed heavily on Devi. But she pushed herself to make the necessary arrangements, and they decided to meet a cafe, a really well-known and comfortable cafe in Jakarta, where they could discuss the details of the project furthermore. And as the days went by, Dewi found herself procrastinating after their first meeting. She struggles with her usual habit of overthinking and self-doubt. She had only produced rough sketches and a looming deadline for the design, and she began to feel overwhelmed. Despite her best in- Despite her best intentions, Dewi wasted majority of her time scrolling through social media, telling herself that she still had plenty of time. The closer of the deadline, the closer the deadline came, the more anxious and unproductive she became. Shin Yun-woo, who was eager to check on her progress, messaged her frequently, but Dewi's responses remained half-hearted. On the eve of the event, Dewi panicked, realizing that she only had a day left to complete the entire design. In a mad rush, she gathered her materials, worked through the night, and finally finished the design, under intense pressure from her procrastination. So finally, when Shin Yun-woo arrived, to pick up the design, Dewi nervously handed it over, hoping it will meet his expectations. But to her surprise, he was thrilled with the result, praising her work and expressing his gratitude. He even wore the design at the special event and received compliments from everyone around him. Though through his appearance, Dewi's work remained introduced Indonesian culture to a wider audience and gained recognition and admiration. Although Dewi had struggled with procrastination and self-doubt, she ultimately succeeded in completing the project, proving to herself that she could overcome her fears and deliver under pressure. The experience helped Dewi realize that despite her introverted nature and tendency to procrastinate, she could still achieve great things when she put her mind to it, as long as she's determined to do it. So, that's the end of the story. Thank you, and bye.
Hello, my name is Dita from 89C, and today I will be reading you the narrative story I wrote in Hella, which is also integrated with my SSPPKayan focus this term, which is culture and, yes. My story will be told in first person through the main character named Jiwoo. Yes. Come on, meeting new people will be fun. So he whines, trying to pull me out of bed. She wants me to accompany her to some gathering that her new boyfriend will be at. Maybe it'll help you settle in better to Jakarta, and it's a good distraction from your work stress, she adds. I swat my hand, trying to shoo her away. There's no way I'm spending the only day I have off this week to third wheel you and your boyfriend, I deadpan, throwing a pillow at her. If you want to go on a date, then go without me. She catches the pillow right before it hits her face. But you're my favorite person, Jewel. Maybe you'll even find your own boyfriend. I groan in response. What if I don't want a boyfriend? Before she has a chance to answer, my phone rings. Mom is calling me. I hate talking to her. All she ever talks about is how much of a disappointment I am compared to Jiwon, her perfect son. With an exasperated sigh, I answered the call. Yeah, Mom. Can't you sound more excited to see your mother? When are you going to stop playing around and get married, or at least get a decent career like Jiwon? Mom, we've been over this. Being a fashion designer is a good career. I'm making good money here and actually enjoy my job. I cut off whatever insult she was about to say. So he rubs my back soothingly in an understanding manner. Truthfully, part of me had relocated to Jakarta in order to get farther away from my family. If you have nothing else to say, then I'm hanging up. I don't bother to hear her out anymore and simply hang up. So he suddenly hugs me, giving me a sympathetic look. She knows how strained my relationship is with my family, mostly my mother. I've never been able to conform to my mother's expectations, and I think I'll always be a never-ending disappointment to my mother. Choosing to be a fashion designer over an architect with a stable income just adds to that. I'm sure she'd always prefer my brother anyways. You just need to get out of the house for a bit, get your mind off things, you know? So he coaxes me. I promise if it's actually that bad, we'll go home early to eat noodles while binge-watching movies, okay? When I sit up and sigh, she knows she had successfully convinced me. I knew this would happen. Glancing at the couples lounging on the couch, I sigh, making an escape to the balcony. It seems I'm not the only one trying to avoid the crowd. I spot a man smoking there, pulling out my own cigarettes and a lighter as I walked over to the railing. I leaned against the railing, the cool night air wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. The sound of laughter and chatter drifted from inside, but I wasn't ready to rejoin that sea of social energy. I took a drag from my own cigarette, watching the smoke curl into the starry sky, when a voice broke through my thoughts. Hey! I glanced over at the man beside me, a bit startled. He had a friendly smile, but I labeled him as just another drunk weirdo trying to make conversation. When I don't respond, "Are you deaf?" he asks, his tone teasing. I turned my gaze to him, intrigued despite myself. "Hey, I'm Attar," he continued, his smile unwavering. "I don't think I've seen you at Baskara's gatherings." I let out a soft exhale, my cigarette smoke mingling with the night air. "And you? My friend is Baskara's girlfriend." He nodded, still leaning casually against the railing. "Sohee, huh? I've heard of her. She's quite the character." I couldn't help but smirk. That's one way to put it. We continued talking. I don't know how long. It felt like I had lost my sense of time as we talked. Though I'm pretty sure we spent at least 3 hours on that balcony just talking and exchanging stories about anything and everything. It was the kind of conversation that felt like hours but also ended all too quickly. I felt a connection forming. The distance I usually kept from strangers started to dissolve, replaced by a sense of ease that surprised me. Just when I was starting to forget about the party inside. So he stepped out onto the balcony, Baskara lingering behind her. Her eyes widened slightly before giving me a look, scanning the scene. "Ready to go?" she asked, a playful glint in her gaze. She linked her arms and whispered to me in Korean, mirth dancing in her look. "Your new friend? Who is he?" Giving her a look that screamed, "Shut up," before glancing back at Attar, who was watching me with an encouraging smile, I hesitated. "Yeah, we should go." So he raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting to one of curiosity. "Hello, and you are?" Attar stood up, his smile widening as he extended his hand. "Attar, nice to meet you." So he shook his hand, her eyes fixed on me, a mischievous glint on them. "Sohee," she replied, her voice laced with playful amusement. "Jiwoo's friend." Attar chuckled. He flashed a charming smile at her. "Sohee, Baskara's girlfriend, huh?" I'm his older brother. His gaze shifts between us. Seeing as you both have to go, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Jiwoo. Maybe we can continue our conversation sometime. I suppose we could be introduced properly some other time as well, Sohee. Baskara, who had been mingling with other guests, stepped forward, surprised and pleased. "Kaka, what are you doing here?" Sohee and you were just about to leave. Attar's smile widened, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Just enjoying the party. Couldn't resist seeing how you were doing. And I think I met someone very interesting. He glanced at me, his eyes lingering for a moment before meeting Baskara's. "You know, I think you and I have a lot in common." His gaze turned back to me. "Maybe we should talk some other time, Jiwoo." I felt a pang of disappointment as I returned his smile. "I'd like that," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. So he, ever the observant one, noticed the shift in my demeanor. She squeezed my hand, her lips curving into a knowing smile. "Come on, let's go," she said, her voice a mix of playful teasing and a gentle encouragement. As we walked back inside, I couldn't help but steal one last glance at Attar. He was watching us, a thoughtful expression on his face. Our eyes met for a fleeting moment, and I felt a spark of something. Something real. Maybe this wasn't just an escape from a party, but the beginning of something more unexpected. Something that had the potential to make my story more interesting. So he kept asking what was going on between me and Attar all the way to my apartment. I told her everything. We reached my apartment, and as I unlocked the door, I felt a mixed sense of nerves and excitement. So he followed me inside, her eyes wide with curiosity. "You have to text him, like, right now." I hesitated, biting my lip. What if he thinks I'm too eager? Besides, I don't have his number. So he rolled her eyes playfully. "Oh, come on. You're not being eager, you're being proactive, and I happen to have his number saved from when we were planning the party." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was an unknown number. "Hey, it's Attar from the party. I got your number from my brother. If you're free sometime, maybe we could go out together." We went back and forth in text before ending up with an arranged coffee date this weekend. The doorbell rang, and I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, smoothing down my hair. Sohee, ever the supportive friend, has been hovering over me all morning, offering fashion advice and making sure I looked my best. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Attar sat there, a smile lighting up his face. "Hey, Jiwoo," he said, his voice a welcome melody. "You look great." I smiled, feeling a warm creep up my cheeks. "Thanks, you too." He held out a bouquet of sunflowers, the bright yellow blooms a stark contrast against the dark green leaves. "These are for you," he said, his gaze meeting mine. I accept the flowers, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Thank you. They're beautiful." As we walked towards his car, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. This was a first date, a chance to get to know each other better. I was curious to see where it would lead, but I was also determined to stay grounded, to keep my usual calm demeanor. He was an engaging person, and we ended up talking for hours, his warmth and humor drawing me in. I found myself opening up to him in a way I rarely did with others, sharing my anxieties about my career and my desires to create something meaningful with my designs. He listened attentively, his eyes full of understanding and encouragement. He shared his own struggles and triumphs, his passion for sustainable architecture, and his dream of creating spaces that would make a positive impact on the world. After coffee, we went to see a movie. An indie film was playing at a small theater downtown. We laughed together. We held hands during the emotional scenes, and we shared our thoughts on it during the credits. As he walked me back to my apartment, the night air crisp and cool, I felt a sense of contentment. This had been a good date, a chance to connect with someone who saw me for who I was, someone who understood my quiet strength and my quiet passion. "Thank you for a great night," I said, my voice soft. He smiled, his eyes sparkling. "It was my pleasure too. I had a wonderful time." As he walked away, I stood there for a moment, feeling a sense of wonder. As the weeks passed by, we spent more and more time together. I found myself getting engrossed in hearing him talk about anything, spending time with him even if it was just doing our own things in each other's company. Our relationship grew and we began dating. Months passed by quickly and it soon became a year. Somehow, I could picture a future with him where we're married with kids, and it almost scared me how attached I was getting. This picture that my mind painted was only cemented by Sophie and Bascara's wedding. The worst part is that when I told him about it, unlike other guys that would get scared off and leave, he gave me a warm smile and a kiss on my forehead, telling me that if you can picture a future with me, then that means we're doing something right. He then added, I think it's time we meet each other's parents." His words caught me off guard. I hadn't even considered that step yet, but it made sense. We were serious, and meeting each other's family seemed like a natural progression. "You think so?" I asked, a slight tremor in my voice. He nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I do. It's important to me that you get to know my family, and I want to meet yours as well. It's a big step, but I think it's a good one." I thought about it for a moment, my mind racing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Meeting his parents was a big step, but it also felt like a confirmation of our commitment to each other. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do it." Honestly, I'm scared of him meeting my family, especially knowing how they are, though I'm sure they'd be pleased that I'm finally settling down with an architect that can provide a stable income. This fear was reinforced when I met his family, and they immediately welcomed me as if I was one of their own. Their household had such a warm air to it, unlike my own. The moment the door opened, Athar's mother had hugged him before glancing at me with a friendly smile. "Hello, dear. You must be you? We've heard so many lovely things about you." I felt a blush creep up my cheeks as I smiled back. "It's nice to meet you," I said, my voice a little shaky. "It's lovely to finally meet you too, dear. Athar has been telling us all about you." Athar's father, a tall, imposing man with a kind face, stepped forward, extending his hand. "Welcome to our home, you. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." As I spent the afternoon with Athar's family, I felt a growing sense of comfort and belonging. They were a close-knit group, full of laughter and love. It was a stark contrast to my own family, where things were often tense and strained. As he drove me home that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that I found something special with Athar. He was not only a wonderful partner, but he came from a family that was filled with love and warmth. It made me break down sobbing into my hands, causing Athar to stop the car, concerned. "You, what's wrong? Don't cry." He cupped my face, trying to wipe away my tears. I confided in him on my worries about him getting to meet my family. He had whispered comforting words into my ear and told me that we would get through this together. His words made me believe that maybe everything would just be okay. Okay, so maybe I was wrong and maybe it won't be okay. Since we entered, they have been everything but welcoming. They hadn't even bothered to let Athar shake their hands, and now, while we sit at the dining table with my parents and brother, the air is so tense that I wondered why I didn't just elope with Athar and tell them to text the morning after. The air crackled with unspoken tension as we sat down for dinner. My father, as always, was the picture of stoic silence, his gaze fixed on his plate. My mother, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of nervous energy, her eyes darting between Athar and me, her lips pressed into a thin line. My brother, Jiwon, sat across me, his arms crossed, his expression a mixture of skepticism and annoyance. Athar, bless his heart, tried his best to break the ice. He made small talk, asking about my parents' work, complimenting my brother's new haircut, even trying to engage Jiwon in a conversation about architecture. But his efforts were met with curt replies and icy stares. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the clinking of silverware and the occasional sigh from my mother. I felt a wave of anxiety over me, my stomach churning with a mixture of guilt and resentment. I had been so excited to introduce Athar to my family, but now I was starting to regret it. There was a lot of poking and prodding on my mother's end to Athar, with terribly hidden animosity, until my mother said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "I'm not sure how you're going to support my daughter with your fancy buildings, especially since you're a pribumi." I felt a wave of despair wash over me. This is going to be a long night. My mom's gaze turned to me. She spoke in Korean. "What is this? When you said his name was Athar, I thought he was a Korean man born in Indonesia. How could you date some random hubo outside of our race?" The room seemed to shrink around me. Despite not understanding fluently, he understood the hostility. Athar's smile faltered. My brother, Jiwon, started to snicker, his gaze fixed on Athar with a mixture of amusement and disdain. That's when the dam broke loose. None of my family even bothered to hide their disapproval anymore. "You, honey, please," my mother said, her voice softer now, but her tone still laced with concern. "Think about it. There are other options, other Korean men who would still be better for you." "No, Mom," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "This is my life, and I'm choosing to live with it my way. I'm choosing to be with Athar." My father sighed again, his gaze fixed on the wall. "You," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "You're making a mistake." I felt a wave of anger wash over me. "I'm not making a mistake, Dad," I said, my voice rising in frustration. "This is my choice, and I'm not going to let you tell me otherwise. If you won't have him, then you won't have me either." I stood up, my legs trembling. I couldn't bear to stay there any longer. I needed to get out, to breathe, to process everything that had just happened. As I walked out of the house, I could hear Attar's voice calling my name. He was standing out the porch, his expression a mixture of concern and confusion. I turned to him, tears streaming down my face. "It's not going to work," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "My family, they don't want me to be with you." I turned to him suddenly. What if we get married? The question tumbled out of my mouth before I could even think about it. It was an impulsive and desperate attempt to hold on to the hope that was quickly fading away. Athar's eyebrows rose in surprise, his eyes widening slightly. Get married, he echoed, his voice soft. But your family, they don't even know us. I know, I said, my voice trembling, but it doesn't matter. We can't let them dictate our lives. We can't let their disapproval stop us. He took my hand, his touch warm and reassuring. You're right. Let's get married, he said, his voice firm. We'll show them hope that we can get through this. So, to speed things up, we talked it over with his parents, who were overjoyed by the news, despite less than pleasant cause. The wedding preparations were a whirlwind of fun, stress, and everything in between. We sent out invitations to my family, though I was sure they wouldn't attend. I hadn't contacted them at all since that night. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. The venue was decorated with vibrant flowers and twinkling lights, creating a magical atmosphere. Athar's family, as always, was warm and welcoming, their smiles radiating love and support. As I stood in the dressing room, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. I wish my parents were there to see me, to share the special moment with me, but I know it was just a dream that was unlikely to come true. As I walked down the aisle, my eyes met Athar's, his face lit up with a smile that was brighter than the sun. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. We exchanged vows that had written ourselves, pouring our hearts into every word. After we sealed our commitment with a kiss, I felt a wave of pure joy wash over me. But then as the music for the reception began playing, a gasp arose from my crowd. My eyes darted to the entrance where I see my parents standing, looking hesitant and nervous. My mother, her face pale and drawn, took a step forward. Jew, we came to apologize. My father, his expression so stoic with a hint of regret in his eyes, nodded in agreement. We were wrong. We didn't understand. I stared at them in disbelief, tears welling up in my eyes. What do you mean? I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. We talked to Athar's parents, my mother explained, her voice breaking, and they made us see things differently. They told us about how much Athar loves you, about how much you two care for each other, and they made us realize that we were being foolish. We were letting our prejudice get in the way of our love for you. My father stepped forward, taking my hand in his. We're so sorry. We want you to be happy. We want you to be a part of we want to be a part of your life. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. It was a mixture of joy, relief, and forgiveness. I had longed for this moment, for my parents to accept Athar, to accept our love, and to accept me. And now, it was finally happening. I threw my arms around my parents, embracing them tightly. It's okay, Mom. It's okay, Dad. My voice choked with tears. I'm just so happy that you're here. As the reception continued, my parents mingled with Athar's family. They shared stories, laughed together, and seemed genuinely happy for us. It was a beautiful sight, a testament to the power of love and forgiveness. And as I danced with Athar, his arms wrapped around me, I knew that this was a truly perfect day. A day that would forever mark the beginning of a new chapter in our lives, a chapter filled with love, laughter, and a family that was finally united. That is the end of the story I wrote. Thank you for listening.
My name is Nathaniel Chandra, and I'm gonna read to you from my book named The Lost Recipe. Illustrated by Pixabay, Novita Cristina, Green Flash, and Irisotoya. One rainy day in the afternoon, in a forest outside the lights of the city of the sci-fi world in the year 3000 of Jakarta, lived a cottage filled with overgrown vines. Inside, a beautiful young red-headed girl named Faith, sitting on her little couch along with her brown shepherd dog named Hope. Faith reading her book. Then a minute later, Faith's sister comes into the room, named Ursu, with curly red hair, her face blooming with anger. She forcefully throws her sister's book away to get her attention. She says, "Cook me food now!" Faith, with a sigh, cooks her sister food. Suddenly, she discovers a hidden door in the back of the stove. While cooking, she sees an opening. She opens the opening slowly, but suddenly, her sister yelled. So she sighs and brings the food to her. With curiousness, Faith wonders and thinks and visions of what might be in the opening in the back of the stove. At night, she wanders out of her room and opened the opening. It reveals an old, dusty cookbook owned by her great-grandma. She realizes it's a cookbook filled with old Indonesian recipes. With excitement, she started to make them. She made kue lapis, nasi uduk, sate, and much more. Suddenly, she had an idea. to open a restaurant. She would then plan to sell these delicious foods from long centuries ago. A year later, she found herself in a new step in life. She built a restaurant with her own money that she saved after working several jobs and made her own business called Indo Foods. A while later, Faith's business became very popular. Ursu, Faith's little sister, heard about her business and went bonkers. So she decided to sabotage her business by putting some kind of powder in the customer's food one time. Months later, the customer fell ill and Faith's business was shut down because of the inconvenience that happened to the customer. Faith was so sad, not knowing what happened. She still continued in life. She was desperate to try again. At night, she was looking out her circled shaped window. Hope realized her owner was sad, so she tried to cheer her up, but nothing worked. The next day, Ursu felt so sorry of what she had done, so she confessed of what happened that had caused a problem to happen. Ursu then says, "I'm so sorry, Faith. I didn't mean to. I was just jealous." Faith wiped her tears and gave her sister a hug. Faith says, "It's okay. Let's start a new beginning," she says with a slight teary smile. After the incident, Ursu and Faith become inseparable. They work their best to achieve their goals of building a restaurant. Finally, 2 years have passed. Since Ursu and Faith now own a restaurant of their own, they tend to sell Indonesian foods to share the culture from centuries back, to bring back the old culture that was long forgotten. The end.
Good morning, my friends and teachers. Today I'm going to be presenting my storytelling video for Hella for the flashing. So first for the writing prompt, I chose 14, which is cultural ghosts. So the story goes like, in an enchanting city of Elderweb, spirited Jennifer stumbles upon an ancient key that unlocks a hidden door to a realm bringing with forgotten stories and captivating ghosts. So, as twilight descends, she's drawn into the magical world where she meets Ricky. So, Ricky is a charming 1920s musician who's a playful spirited that makes her heart race. So, Vicky is a samurai burned by a tragic past, and she strives her compassion from Indonesia. So, there is also Mindy, a witty trickster who is fears of confronting her on her own history and thrilling tension. So, in here, Jennifer navigates the emotional complexities of each ghost, forging unexpected bonds that challenge her to understand her love and legacy. As secrets unfold and her tensions simmer and their adventures crescent into a vibrant festival that celebrates rich and tapestry of the past, where laughter and heartache and romance interesting, almost the festival magic that Jennifer must confront her feelings, lead to the heart-stopping chance that she changed everything. So, for the Pavon conflict, this story is told in third-person limited perspective to Jennifer, who feels isolated in an enchanting city of Elderwood, where she, So this uncertainty about who it intensifies when Minji, a witty trickster, goes complicates matters of feelings by her own past. As Jennifer navigates this web is mistress, she must ultimately confront her truth at a grand festival where embracing the ghost legacies could lead to unexpected alliances and the person's empowerment. The key messages, though, the story emphasized the importance of embracing your passion despite others' misunderstandings, navigate trust and mistrust in relationships. Yeah. And then for the setting on plot, the setting, I made up a place. It's called Elderwood, a charming, historically rich city in the present day. At the year or time that Surin falls, it's the present day, with hints of magical realism tied into the city's rich history. Yeah, for the character, there's Jennifer, Minji, Ricky, and Vicky. Jennifer is the main character that plays a spirited girl who's passionate about her history, and she's an antagonist, a protagonist. Sorry. Yeah. So, I think that's all for my storytelling video. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Good morning, everyone. I will read my book called The Fine Legend Dining. Not long ago, in the central part of the town, there was a restaurant established by a young girl named Amelia. She had this restaurant since her grandmother was still alive. After her passing, she made a promise to keep her legacy alive and keep the restaurant running. Until then, her brother Ivan was triggered by how well the restaurant has been, and despite how much Ivan hated his grandmother, he wanted to shut the restaurant down. But Amelia kept going nonetheless, and let her grandmother's wish of a successful restaurant continue on its journey. And the purpose of the restaurant is to bring culture to the people from their tempting foods and decor. However, much recently, the restaurant had faced their problems. There was an ongoing debt along Amelia's grandmother's restaurant. It wasn't a deal then, but sooner it has risen a lot more. Amelia was starting to worry about the restaurant. She thought it would be the end of her cultural resilience. Without the restaurant, there will be no other way she can build awareness for the culture of the country. Ivan, on the other hand, didn't care at all. Ivan was hoping the restaurant would turn downhill. Further continuing upon the problem, Amelia had to deal with her brother too for being arrogant and ignorant about the restaurant. In a haste to save the restaurant, Amelia had borrowed a few thousand Indonesian rupiah from the local financier stand. She promised to repay him in 2 months, and so she began to work harder and regain the money she had borrowed. Amelia was able to save the restaurant from the debt, however, but she still had another problem to worry about. Upon hearing this news, Ivan was slightly disappointed. He thought the dreams of his grandmother would come down. Well, little did he know, Amelia was a very determined and diligent girl who would do anything to make her grandmother's wishes come true. Thus, she kept working harder and harder to keep the restaurant at its potential and thrive in the town. But fortunately, a few days later, Amelia was reminded of an old recipe that her grandmother had kept for the restaurant. It was hidden deep into the legends, but Amelia was sure that it was the only way to save the restaurant. As she had searched continuously for clues, she was finding some hints of the recipe. It was written like riddles that led to a path to the hidden spot. As Ivan discovered this, he began to sabotage her journey a few times, which did affect her a bit, but not making her stop there. This was Amelia's mission after all, to do anything what it takes to save her grandmother's restaurant. And so she investigated and discovered many things along her way, feeling as she is getting closer with each step she takes. After a few clues and many solved riddles, Amelia had gotten into the hidden recipe, which contains the most desired and famous meal that is recognized as a part of the country's culture. Upon discovering this, she quickly got back to work and began to start cooking, following the steps of the recipe. After many servings of this dish, it brought back the attention of cultural diversity from the customers. Without any exception, she took the feedback as a token of appreciation to her hard work, along with her successful mission of keeping her grandmother's legacy alive. And soon in 2 months, she was able to pay back the loan she had borrowed from Stan. Ivan was saddened about the success, now leaving to a place farther and more distance from his sister's now growing restaurant. And that was my story of the Fine Legend Dining. Thank you for listening.
Okay, good morning, or good night, or good afternoon, whatever, everyone. My name is Ganana Putra, and I will be reading my story. Title is The Minotaur Games, and basically I took the original story of the Minotaur, like from Greek mythology. I made it into like a modern spin. Okay, basically, first I have to simplify the story because the video has to be 7 minutes long. Okay, basically, a group of scientists, they mix human DNA with bull DNA. So there's like a dude. They take a guy named Miwu, right? He's a volunteer, and he drinks from this glass that has a strange liquid from the scientist. He drinks it. He becomes a minotaur. Whoa, the minotaur is really, really tall and really strong. Alright? He becomes a half bull, half human hybrid that the scientists call the minotaur. Yeah. Then the news of this spreads everywhere, and it catches the attention of a businessman, a billionaire named George. What's his name? George Vasileios. And he's the CEO of a big entertainment company that makes TV shows and game shows and stuff called Entertainia. The reason why George is interested is because he wants to buy the Minotaur from the scientists. The scientists agree, and they ship the Minotaur from China all the way to his HQ at Athens, Greece, which is the capital of Greece. Yeah, and basically, George hires this construction company to create the big set. So basically, George's game show idea, he wants to make a maze, right? A maze. Then he puts the Minotaur inside the maze, right? And he injects the Minotaur in his neck with a serum that makes him really angry and makes him want to kill people. And basically he'll put people in there. They gotta like run away from the Minotaur and try to find the exit to the maze. Okay. Yes. The Minotaur. He finds himself in a room. Right when he's shipped there, he gets sedated, right, and he wakes up in a small room. This is like his room, his like cell, his cage, alright, and he tries to break out. He tries to punch through. He can't, because the walls are too strong. The door's too strong, and the glass that's like separating him and the outside is too strong. He can't break it. Basically, every day the Minotaur gets sedated. Right? He gets a syringe in the neck because of a robot arm that comes out. Right? In his neck, right? And that makes him fall asleep. Then he wakes up in the maze, and then that's when he gets stuck again. A syringe again. That makes him angry. Yeah. And basically he does this every single day, running around the maze, catching people, trying to chase the people down, every day. And eventually he gets tired of this. He gets tired. So his performance becomes worse. He grows slower, and that means the reviews of the game show drop. It becomes more boring. So George has a solution to this. Basically, he puts a neck brace on the Minotaur that will shock him every single time he tries to slow down. So every time he slows down, and then the Minotaur speeds up again. But one day, the Minotaur realizes that he can spit on his hand and then rub it on the neck, a neck brace, right, to make it rust. So he does that before he sleeps. Next day, it's fully rusted over. He rips it off. He realizes that it's still active. So if he shakes his arm like this while holding the neck brace, right? Neck brace thinks the Minotaur's running, but if he just stops, he stops shaking it. Shake electric shock again. So basically, since every day there's like a robot arm that comes to sedate him, to drag him so that the people can like drag him to the maze. The Minotaur uses the shock thing, shakes it around at the robot arm. Okay, and the robot arm gets disabled. Okay, but the people who, but now Minotaur's confused. What does he do now? He just falls asleep. Okay, yeah, he just falls asleep. So the people who come to drag Minotaur out, the Minotaur out into the maze, the people, his caretakers, they think that he got sedated by the thing up there, but really he didn't. He's just asleep normally. So they accidentally wake him up, and the Minotaur's like, "Oh my God, the door is open!" And he runs. He runs out. He runs out. He's like freaking. He's so angry, right? He starts. He's like he sees. He's like in the warehouse. In the warehouse is like the big maze, and he sees a bunch of people and all the equipment, all the workers. He gets like so angry. He doesn't kill anyone. Well, actually, he hurts a lot of people. He starts breaking everything, all the equipment, all the technology, or all the stuff. He was breaking it everywhere, right? And eventually, he he runs out to one of the sides of the building. He punches through the wall, and then he escapes. Basically, yes, he escaped. This makes international news, and George Vasilio, his name was, I think. He his company falls. Entertainia is done for. He is become a failure. The Minotaur becomes a symbol of rebellion and a reminder that even during hard times, there's always a way out. In conclusion, never give up. Yes.
Hello everyone, today I'm gonna share the story that I made. The title is The Santiagos. It was September 2024. In the midst of extreme modernization, the glamorous city of Cordoba is on the edge of a cliff, remaining hazardous for losing its identity. Not a single soul seemed to be vigilant towards their culture until we came to the Santiago family. So basically, Lucia was searching for one of her dress in the attic that she has stored for a long time. But in search of that dress, she found a book that seemed really old. The cover has turned yellow, but it remained. All the pages remained attached, and the condition of the book was pretty good. So Lucia doesn't have much time because she has to go out with her father and her mother to eat in one of their favorite fancy restaurants. So she just kept the book in her bag, and she go downstairs, and their family went to the restaurant. That day, Lucia and her parents spent the whole day in their favorite restaurant. Although her father, Pedro seems very interested in F&B business and is inspired with the restaurant they visited. So Pedro, that is already rich, decided to create his new business, which is a restaurant, and he created it purposefully to inherit the business for Lucia in the future. Long story short, a few weeks has passed, and the restaurant is successfully built. Pedro is looking at the restaurant thinking he have made it because a lot of cars are sitting in the parking lot, and the waiting list just keep getting longer and longer. Although there's another restaurant in front of Pedro's restaurant, and there's a few guys approaching him saying basically they own this place. Pedro is not scared at all because he has been in Cordoba for a very long time. So he just shake it off and thinking this may be a new gang that doesn't know Pedro. So yeah, they left the restaurant. Although Pedro underestimated them because soon after he got a message from Lucia. Now here where it gets interesting. Lucia in the message said that she was in the restaurant asking there's an important thing. Pedro and Sofia, which is Lucia's mother, needs to come to the restaurant as soon as possible. Although when her parents arrived at the restaurant, there's no one. As in, there's a lot of customers, but Lucia is nowhere to be found. And when they ask the staff, no one has seen Lucia. Not so long after, when Pedro and Sofia feels odd, there's another message from Lucia saying they should stay there in the restaurant. Pedro feels like everything is not going right. Nothing is right. So he rushed home just to see that at their home there's only broken glass and broken phone, and there's no one there. And it's clear that the message weren't from Lucia, and Lucia is kidnapped somewhere. Pedro quickly checked the CCTV footage and saw Lucia getting dragged by the two guys earlier. So he's furious. He decided to hop on the car, call his gang member, everyone rushed to the location that he tracked down, and he basically found where the two guys went with Lucia. And then basically he arrived there with the gang and decided to rush inside the warehouse district where they tried to hide Lucia. Pedro burst through the door, find where's the two guys, and he saw a lot of these two guys gang and everything. But he's not scared at all. He's bringing 20 people with him, and he decided to rush everyone, and he's really angry. Didn't say a word, just rush. And then he decided to finish everyone right there, and he searched for his daughter. And basically he found Lucia in one of the rooms. She was tied up in a chair. She was blindfolded, she can't see anything, she's crying. So yeah, Pedro decided to release her and say that everything is alright. And there's bodies everywhere on the floor. Pedro decided to approach the two guys and said, "You're messing with the wrong guy, and never mess with him again." So for now, Pedro thinks that their family is safe and they don't need to worry about anything anymore. But at least that's what he thought for now. The story remains to be continued. And that's it from my story. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you.